All right, next up we are talking about Western Sahara. Let's talk about the Western Sahara real quick. Shifting a little bit to the north. So this Western Sahara is a desert territory on the Atlantic coast, right? About the size of the UK. And who owns it? You probably haven't heard of this nation. You may have heard of the space, but as a nation, who owns it? Well, that's a little bit complicated, right? Spain, again, Hispanic Heritage Month. Spain originally grabbed the area in the late 19th century, calling it Spanish Sahara. But after decolonization, in the 1970s, Spain walked away, but instead of independence, Morocco moved in from the north and Mauritania from the south. Enter the Polisario Front, a liberation movement made up of Sahrawis, the indigenous people of Western Sahara. They declared the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic in 1976, fought guerrilla wars, and got support from Algeria. Now, Mauritania wasn't really about that life, so they quickly bowed out, signing peace in 1979. But Morocco dug in. Today, Morocco controls about 80% of Western Sahara, including all major cities like El Aoun, while Polisario controls scattered desert areas east of Moroccan-built sand wall, and they continue to push for independence. So as we talk more about Western Sahara, I'll be referring to an article written by Esther Sun in the Council of Foreign Relations. For the Council of Foreign Relations, again, you'll find that link in the description here. It says here, Western Sahara was an overseas Spanish colony from the 1880s until the mid-1970s. Mauritania and Morocco both laid claim to the territory after Spain withdrew, partitioning it between them. But in 1975, the Polisario Front, the political and military force that proclaimed the SADR, right, remember, Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, launched a guerrilla war against both countries. After Mauritania signed a peace deal with the Polisario and withdrew in 1979, Morocco annexed the remainder of the Western Sahara, and the conflict continued. Now, the dispute over Western Sahara has been a major flashpoint in the rivalry between Morocco and neighboring Algeria, which can be traced back to a decades-old border conflict. In 1975, the Polisario Front relocated its headquarters to the town of Tindouf in Algeria, which has since provided the group with military aid and allowed it to operate out of Algerian territory. Now think about that. Bilateral tensions increased after Morocco normalized relations with Israel in exchange for the U.S.'s recognition of its claim to Western Sahara. So the U.S. and Mexico have been, and Morocco, what am I talking about, Mexico? And Morocco have been doing these deals since back when Morocco became the first nation to recognize the revolting colonies as a nation back in the 18th century, right? So that's pretty interesting. So this led to Algeria to sever diplomatic ties with Morocco in 2021. Think about that. These nations are all the nations of the Middle East and the Arab world are largely in some form of concert, right, in tandem against Israel. Then Morocco is out here doing these deals behind the scenes here. Additionally, Iran has reportedly supplied arms to the Polisario Front, sparking further concerns that Western Sahara is being used as a proxy by regional powers. The Western Sahara conflict has also driven up tensions within the African Union, whose decision to grant membership to the SADR in 1984, right, led Morocco to withdraw from the bloc. Morocco rejoined the AU in 2017, and since then the bloc has largely avoided the issue, right, sort of making it seem as the elephant in the room, as it were. But it's very interesting because if you know Morocco's role in the very founding of the Organization of African Unity, that would become the African Union later, the name would change. The more radical group was known as the Casablanca group because that's where folks were meeting, Kwame Nkrumah and other leaders who were more gung-ho towards African unity. So to imagine that Morocco would spend almost 3 decades away from that organization on account of this issue just shows how much of a sore spot it is. Western Sahara is also of major economic importance. Together, Morocco and Western Sahara are estimated to contain 70% of the world's phosphate reserves, which are crucial to fertilizer production and thus global food supply chains. One mine in Western Sahara, Bokra, produces about 10% of Morocco's total phosphate exports, and some experts say that renewed conflict could disrupt this production. So what are the prospects for resolution? And I'm still citing here from the Council on Foreign Relations. Diplomatic pressures could be building for an end to the conflict. Morocco's plan would grant autonomy for Western Sahara while keeping it under Moroccan control. This idea gained international backing, including support from many Western nations such as United States, France, Spain, and support for the SADR's independence is weakened. According to experts, countries such as France and Spain are keen to maintain good relations with Morocco because they need to help on other issues, namely migration management and counter-terrorism. However, the Polisario Front hasn't moved from its demands for a referendum on independence, leaving negotiations at large. So this is something worth watching to see how this plays out. And what about passports? What do they do? Well, who are these? What are these people? What citizens are they? Well, the Sahrawis in Moroccan zones carry Moroccan passports. Those in refugee camps in Algeria might carry Polisario-issued Sahrawi passports, recognized only by a handful of countries. Many others rely on Algerian refugee documents, though. The UN considers Western Sahara a non-self-governing territory, basically. It's Africa's last unresolved colony. And here's the kicker. Every now and then, the issue flares up in global diplomacy, but otherwise, it just simmers, as we're talking about here. So they pretty much exist in limbo. So if you've ever looked at a map of Africa and seen that gap, in the northwest Africa, that is Western Sahara, formerly Spanish Sahara, a former Spanish colony, as it were, indeed.